Well, hello everyone. We are continuing with our college algebra lessons. We are going to go ahead and multiply matrices without a calculator, and ultimately that is just to show you what is going on. I did hear from Mr. Veer, and he said that on your test you will be allowed to use a calculator, but I did want to go ahead and show you at least one problem with multiplying matrices without a calculator. In our previous lesson, we were talking about adding and subtracting matrices. And when we were adding and subtracting, if we recall, they had to be the same size, the same order, the same dimensions. Unfortunately, when we are talking about multiplying matrices, the rule is different. Our rule for multiplying matrices means that the number of the columns of the first matrix must equal the number of the rows of the second. And what that means is ultimately that the middles must match. So, in the order of our matrices, the middle must match. And what that is saying, if we had, for example, a 3 by 2 and a 2 by 6, that we can multiply these two matrices together because these two numbers match up, so the middles must match, and that our product would then give us a 3 by 6 matrix. So then if we had, for example, a 3 by 1 and a 1 by 2, our middles match up. So the product of those is a 3 by 2. So therefore, that the order of that we multiply matrices together matters. And what that means is that matrix multiplication is not commutative, that the order in which they are multiplied matters. So the order matters. So matrix multiplication, not commutative. Not commutative. Very, very, very important. So for example, if we have matrix Y and then matrix X, and we want to multiply these together, matrix Y happens to be 1, 4, negative 2, and 3. Matrix X, on the other hand, is 4, 7, negative 2, 5, 1, and negative 1. And first thing you should always check, can we multiply these together? And if we notice, this is a 2 by 2, and this is a 2 by 3. So looking at our middles, they absolutely do match up. So therefore, our product that we would expect should be a 2 by 3, by the two numbers on the outside. Now, where these come from is kind of interesting. That what we're going to do, we're going to take the row of our first matrix and multiply it by the column of our second. So that is going to give us the product of row 1, column 1, and kind of going back to our little addresses gives us our first entry. So what that is 1 times 4 plus 4 times 5. And we would know, hey, that equals 24. Then our next entry is the product of row 1, column 2. So row 1, column 2. So that is 1 times 7 plus 4 times 1, and that is equal to 11. And then our last entry in row 1 is the product of row 1, column 3. So that is P sub 1, 3. So that is 1 times negative 2 plus 4 times negative 1, which is negative 6. And then we're going to go ahead and figure out what would be our last row, which would be the product of row 2, column 1. So row 2, column 1. And that is negative 2 times 4 plus 3 times 5, which has a value of 7. And then product row 2, column 2. The best way when you're multiplying these by hand is definitely to make sure you are kind of coming up with the addresses for all of our entries. So then that is negative 2 times 7 plus 3 times 1, which has a value of negative 11. And then our last entry on that would be the product of row 2, column 3. So that would be negative 2 times negative 2 plus 3 times negative 1. And that has a value of 1. The other way we could potentially do this, and showing you in your calculator, is to go ahead and, we're going to go alpha zoom. And our first one is a 2 by 2. And we're going to put in all of our entries. And we're going to multiply that by and do our little alpha zoom. That one is a 2 by 3. And then that is 4, 7, negative 2, 5, 1, and negative 1. And then we can press enter, and amazingly, look what we did by hand is what we end up with in our calculators. That's just to show, hey, it's not magic. That is where all of these actually do come from. So let's go ahead and look at problem number 2. And obviously I wrote a little too big over here, so I apologize. But if we look at problem number 2 and look at matrix X, that has a would be 4, 7, negative 2, 5, 1, and negative 1. And then that would be matrix Y, 1, 4, negative 2, and 3. And once again, before we always try to start, we should make sure we can multiply these together. This is a 2 by 3, and this is a 2 by 2. We're going to check up. Oh my goodness, the middles don't match. So this answer is NA, not possible. And we would say that matrix multiplication is not commutative. And then our very last problem, ladies and gentlemen, let's go ahead and just do this and practice in our calculator. So we have matrix W. And matrix W is 3, negative 2, 1, 0, 2, negative 1. And then matrix X is 4, 7, -2, 5, 1, and -1. So if we are going to multiply these together, first thing, always check, can we do this? This size of this matrix is a 3 by 2. The size of this matrix is a 2 by 3. Our middles match up, so we know that our matrix in the end should be a 3 by 3. And let's go ahead and plug this in our calculators. So alpha zoom, and this is a 3 by 2. So that would be then, oops, I have a 3 by 3. Let's fix that. Alpha zoom, 3 by 2. I apologize, ladies and gentlemen. Oops. Well, there we go. I'll just start from scratch. So alpha zoom, 3 by 2. There we go. And obviously that's always a great way to double check. Does it look like it's the same size as from our problem? So we've got 3, -2, 1, 0, 2, -1. And we are going to multiply that by a 2 by 3. And our rows would be 4, 7, -2, 5, 1, and -1. And this would be one of those instances, since we are just relying on our calculator, double check, did we copy the problem correctly? So I'm just taking that extra minute to double check. And we did. And we're just going to go ahead, and there is our answer. And notice it is a 3 by 3 like we expected. So then that would be 2, 19, -4, 4, 7, -2, 3, 13, and then last but not least, -3. And that is it for today, ladies and gentlemen. So I hope we have enjoyed multiplying matrices by hand and on our calculator. Please remember that we are going to be allowed on our test to multiply just using our calculator. So that is it. We have one more lesson to go. I look forward to seeing you guys sometime in the near future. Good night.